Objectives. 3 different categories. First category within this objective. Explain how German violations of American neutrality. What do we have here? What is Germany doing specifically? Mr. Lillis.
The use of U-boats.
What is a U-boat?
Submarine. It's a submarine.
It's an Unterseeboot or a submarine. Very good. Now, what are they doing with it, though?
Unrestricted submarine.
Yeah.
Very good. Unrestricted submarine warfare. Okay. Now, explain unrestricted submarine warfare. How would this look?
Anything's fair game. It's just
Assuming you enter what?
the restricted zone.
If you enter hostile territory or warring waters, you're liable to be shot first and then questioned later, if at all. Very good. What else could we have here for challenging neutrality?
The Zimmerman note.
Good. What is that?
It was a note that was intercepted by the British from Germany to Mexico that promised Mexico southern portions of the U.S., including Texas, if they helped and fought against the U.S. to try and keep the U.S. out of the war overseas.
Absolutely. Alfred Zimmerman's going to issue this note to the leader of the Mexican nation saying, basically, if you support our war initiative in World War I and creating a warring front in the New World in the United States, the Western Hemisphere, we will essentially guarantee the return of that entire Mexican cession that you lost in the Mexican-American War, which is basically the whole southwestern portion of the United States.
What is that?
Mexican cession returned. Okay? Lillis?
The sinking of the Lusitania.
Very good. Lusitania?
Yeah.
Why would that be a German violation of neutrality?
Because there were American citizens on that ship, and it was also sunk without giving any warning. And
Excellent.
it didn't contain any, that was noticeable, any arms.
According to the Zim, though, there was.
Indeed.
Hidden.
Indeed. But it's a passenger liner. Nonetheless, it's a passenger liner, and you don't sink a passenger liner. Whether or not in the cargo hold there were munitions and supplies for the military war effort, besides the point.
It's a cover-up.
Yep. Number 2, okay? Strong economic and political ties to Britain. TJ?
U.S. financiers such as J.P. Morgan were given permission by the U.S. government to extend $3 billion in credit to Britain and France.
Good. Why would they do that?
Why would they give them money?
Why would they extend the opportunity for private investors to go forth and essentially start writing checks for the...
It's not
The war
America
nation.
directly. It's like, you just can't tell them that they can't.
It's not, exactly. You're not challenging American neutrality. These are private investors. Okay? Therefore, the government isn't writing a check. They're allowing you all, the billionaires in the room, to assist them if you want and then collect a return on your investment, just like if you'd watch Shark Tank. Okay? A return on your investment if you write one. But it's not the government, ergo it is not a violation of neutrality. Excellent. Anything else we could have here? Cultural ties. Why might that be included? What do you guys think?
Because there's people from other countries living in the United States, and then those people, such as Ireland, would support the U.S. because they are very against Great Britain. Well,
They would support the Central Powers, absolutely. Yep. Okay, so they're culturally similar to one side or the other within the United States, so we have an issue of clashing cultures within our own country as far as who to support in this war initiative. Okay? Use of propaganda, subsection number 3. Sarah,
They were painting Germans as vile Huns.
explain. Anyone familiar with the vile Huns? What might that look like?
Savage monsters like pillaging like cities and not taking any prisoners, just killing everyone.
Absolutely. Savage monsters consuming democracy and freedom. For example, almost looking as if it's like Godzilla with Lady Freedom dressed all in white as he's attacking and destroying cities. Okay, we want to make our enemy look as inhumane and vile, hence vile Huns, as possible to try to sway public opinion to this initiative. Okay, were they successful? Absolutely. Anytime you can make someone look so inherently wrong and horrible in life, someone will heed to that call. Excellent. Okay. 4 main reasons for U.S. intervention. Number 1. All right? What we have here is the Declaration of Armed Neutrality. Basically, Sussex Pledge that the Germans offered in response to the sinking of the Sussex ship from the French is gone. They continue on to unrestricted submarine warfare. Our response, do your thing. Just know that any kind of merchant ship or any American ship traveling to this part of the world will be heavily armed. Now, another way that you guys can witness this, given current times, the reaction to pirates off of the coast of Somalia. Okay, we're familiar with the pirates attacking merchant ships as they travel up the Red Sea. They started arming themselves. Or, in a more Hollywood-based, the very first Fast and the Furious movie, where at the very end the trucker has a shotgun.
Yeah.
That's technically armed neutrality. He's doing his job and someone's interfering with it. Same theory here. Okay? Diplomatic telegram, Miss Pettiprint provided the Zimmerman note. This makes sense. You know, there should be no questioning if you are a Mexican leader, a Mexican warring general. If someone's promising all of that land you lost in war for assistance to the German war machine, both in the Western Hemisphere and in Europe, you might entertain the idea. Especially if you consider those states that we know now, California, Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. Okay? That's a lot of land being returned. We know the value economically now, certainly. All right? The fall of the Romanov family, number 3. More formally known as what? This 1917, Russia.
The USSR.
The Bolshevik Revolution establishes the USSR. Very good. The Soviet Union. Okay? Romanov family. What do we know about them? The Tsars.
They were overthrown.
Well, they're overthrown, but what do you guys know of the history of these Tsars? Were they loved? No. 5 main Tsars, Alexander 1 through 3, as well as Nicholas 1 and 2, are your major Romanov rulers. Okay? Not overly loved, oppressive, most of which are horrible. The use of censorship, the use of expelling you all to Siberia and praying for, or you all would pray for the best of your life. Good luck. Okay? Nonetheless, this is a democratic revolution. Interesting to consider it that way. But if you consider the fact that these citizens in now Soviet Union, at the time we're looking at here, were being oppressed by a government who essentially does not care, are they not seeking democratic rights? Have you ever thought of the Soviet Union as an extension of democracy?
Not at all.
Not at all, because the application is flawed. But nonetheless, the whole idea behind this movement, the Bolshevik Revolution, is freedom, is liberty. The application, very different. Okay, Vladimir Lenin is one of our major Bolshevik leaders. Who is our other one that we will know more familiarly in World War II? Stalin, very good. Write that down. Okay. Those 2 rulers specifically are going to be probably the 2 most impactful rulers in Russian history in their success as far as handling world affairs and industrializing the country. Moving forward. Nonetheless, with the fall of Nicholas II, Wilson was assured the world was no longer safe for democracy. Germans must be stopped. We declare a warfare against mankind. April 4th, we enter the war. Okay. Suppression of civil liberties and dissent. Now, this is kind of going into that realm of martial law. Is it necessary to filter your society for the betterment of society as a whole? Is it necessary to silence the minorities to protect the masses? Is what we're looking at here. Okay, the Espionage Act called for fines, imprisonment, anyone aiding the enemy or obstructing the war effort. Okay, more along the lines of censorship with the distribution of treasonable literature, anything that is against the war. You're considered committing treason against your country. That's a heavy idea.
There's no space on here.
Sorry.
The next blank is the next one.
Sorry. Anyways, Supreme Court case that upholds the Espionage Act in 1917, Schneck versus the United States. Okay, basically is your government saying, this is legitimate, this is necessary, and here's our icon as far as why. Okay? Anyone who commits actions against the country presents a clear and present danger to national interests. And therefore, this is the most heavy idea here, the First Amendment and free speech rights can be limited. If you are considered an enemy to the state being the government, in accordance to this Supreme Court case and the Espionage Act, can suspend your constitutional rights. Now, this is a highly contested act that's been passed through in the past decade. Anyone know where I'm going with this? Related to the suspension of rights for the protection of the masses.
Where they put the Japanese.
Not yet. We're talking the 2000s here. After 9/11.
9/11, yeah, George Bush did it.
Yep. What's the act, though? The Patriot Act. Write it down. Okay, this is in response to the September 11th attacks, which obviously the masses in the United States were, you could argue, probably the most united since Pearl Harbor. You can never say fully united because someone's always going to be anti-war along the way. Most united since Pearl Harbor. Thus, the Patriot Act passes through a sweeping support. The ability for the government to suspend your constitutional rights for the betterment of the United States. I question this. What is the purpose of the Constitution then? If the government has said power to take your rights from you, does this not? You could compare the Patriot Act to the Espionage Act to the Alien Sedition Acts.
It's like this same thing as that. Like they can suspend people they suspect of like terrorist activities.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. American citizens, though. We're not talking just immigrants or anyone who's here on a visa. American citizens. Maybe your family's been here for generations. But nonetheless, and this is all going to be brought back up again with McCarthyism and communist witch hunts. If you're suspected an enemy of the state, they can take your rights. It's something to consider, but nonetheless, we progress. Okay, Committee of Public Information written by George Creel, a progressive. Now, why might one include that? Think of this. Think of the irony here. Okay? Think of the irony. Reading the sub-point here. To deter and eliminate those considered un-American, a progressive, one who aligns himself with progress in society, an expansion of rights across the demographic board, is in charge of this committee. Do you see some delicious irony of this? Okay? But nonetheless, we are at war. You cannot forget that. Is this not the betterment for the masses? Okay? If you consider how the September 11th attacks went down, if you consider were there more stringent and restricting requirements for airlines, okay, as far as earning your license to fly a plane, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But there were several gaps and loops in this whole system that allowed it to go through. You could play the what-if game with anything, though, but it honestly is something to consider. Economics of war. Okay? Foundation for the intervention such as the New Deal. What we have here is the rise of the government's power. Okay? We all know that the New Deal is going to be exceptionally effective, pulling us out of the Great Depression, but ultimately the savior of the Great Depression is what? World War II. Okay? Because New Deal was running out of money. The New Deal legislations, both of them, running low on cash. But nonetheless. Represented as an economic centralization. Okay, again, rise of federal government. That's one of the greatest impacts of this war. More power to the center. Which many people argue that's what we fought a war to get away from. But here we have examples, again, our federalist, anti-federalist debate of why this could be necessary. Excuse me. War Industries Board, led by Bernard Baruch. Okay, this is created to coordinate all aspects of industrial production and distribution towards the war effort. What is this known as? For example, Ford, the big three, stops producing what they're producing. They start producing war materials.
Oh.
Moving away from the psychological component. It's the same word, though. Total war. Okay, total war. This is an example of the economic perspective, of the economic portion of it. The Lever Act, Herbert Hoover, as food administrator, claimed to mobilize agriculture to establish prices enough to encourage production. Helping farmers, that's a big one. Okay, farmers are the backbone of your economy, whether you accept it or not. Everyone has to eat. Not everyone needs to drive. Okay, War Labor Board, arbitrated labor management disputes. Arbitrated means what? Anyone know the difference between arbitration and mediation?
Mediation is
Teddy Roosevelt was one of our best arbitrators.
mediation is like dealing with it, but arbitrary is stopping it completely.
The major difference between arbitration, which is a huge word, and circle that specifically on this section here. Arbitration, say I'm the arbitrator between these two ladies at conflict. Student A presents her conflict, student B presents it. They tell me, they fight for the side, I make the decision. A mediator helps you work through it so that you two come together and make a decision. Arbitrator makes the decision for you.
So arbitrator's a judge.
Kind of, yeah. So essentially what we have here with the War Labor Board, any labor disputes, we'll hear both sides, we're going to make the decision, even if that means sweeping layoffs. You don't want to work, we're at war, you're out of a job, someone needs your job. Okay? A lot of people argue during this time this level of extremism is necessary. Moving forward. Okay? Specifics of the war. We're all familiar with trench warfare, yes?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, you'll fight for weeks on end to gain a couple feet or an inch, possibly. A great wealth of death, decay. The trenches themselves, horrific in nature. The use of gas, okay? The ability to liquefy your lungs and having you cough shards of your insides out. Or coming into contact with sweaty skin and causing great burns. Horrible stuff. But nonetheless, okay? Germany, war is sapping resources. They're losing. Whether or not they're losing territory, they're losing funds and resources that they can't replace. So they are, in fact, losing. Okay? After the Allies launched the major offensive in the fall of 1918, it became clear the Germans would be invaded. 1918, climax of the war, because everything after that's moving downwards. The Kaiser abdicates, which means what? What does this term mean? To abdicate from your throne.
Step down.
To step down. Very good. So he stepped down from his throne. Look at the examples between World War I and World War II. Kaiser abdicates, declares loss, steps down, disappears into history. What happened to Adolf Hitler? Kill himself. There's zero pride with the Germans. They lose, they step down, and disappear. There's no ownership of the responsibility. Instead, he bestows all this to the Weimar Republic. You remember with Germans, it sounds like V, Wacker, not Whacker, in Tecumseh. Which agreed the armistice, meaning, what is an armistice?
To stop the production of arms.
To what?
Stop the production of arms. No.
Armistice is a ceasefire. Write that down. They agreed to ceasefire. The war doesn't necessarily mean it's over, but we agreed for the time being to stop fighting. Okay?
Oh, it was on our objectives last time.
Yep. We agreed to stop fighting. The book All Quiet on the Western Front, if you get a chance to read it, it's, I think, like less than 100 pages, maybe just over it. An excellent depiction of World War I. The War to End All Wars claims 50,000 plus American lives, cost over $300 billion, and 4 empires, make sure you write this down because we won't see these again, are gone. The Russian Empire, what did that become? The Soviet Union, very good. Okay, the German Empire.
Oh, they just lost all economic.
They become the Weimar Republic to eventually rise up again as the Third Reich under Nazi Germany. Ottoman Empire.
Split into
The Ottoman Turks becomes Turkey and a bunch of sovereign nations. Very good. Austro-Hungarian.
Austria.
Split back to Austria-Hungary. Czechoslovakia reappears and several other the Slovak nations. Excellent. The Slavs. The Big Four. Woodrow Wilson, Georges Clemenceau, David Lloyd George, and Vittorio Orlando. We meet to discuss the final stages of the war. Okay? Allied powers met in Paris and Versailles, France, 1919 to work out the details. This is what we come up with. Okay? Results of the war. The League of Nations is going to be the crown. Provinces of Alsace and Lorraine lost in the Franco-Prussian War, returned to France. France's victory, France is happy. But we're wary. We're going to establish the Magenois line to keep Germany in check. Germany prevented from placing troops on the western side of the Rhine River. German military dramatically reduced in size and strength. Why would one do that? You're a victorious nation. Why would you ensure that their armament, munitions and personnel included, reduced significantly?
Now they're not
So that they
threat.
couldn't come back.
To keep them weak so they cannot rise to power again. Very good. But again, it's that bug zapper. We're going to have a little zapper going to come to the fruition here known as Adolf Hitler. Start saying some ideas and the bugs will flock. Okay? Germany to ship coal from the occupied Saar region in France for a period of 15 years. For the next 15 years, you owe them industrial resources. Germany lost all international colonies, specifically Africa and Asia. Write that down. Those are the two major areas we're looking at. New nations created. Poland reappears on the map, has been gone since the partition of Poland under Catherine the Great and other leaders. Okay, so Poland is now a country again. Germany is ultimately branded with war guilt. It's a primary perpetrator, meaning what?
They
They
started the
started
war.
Very good. Okay? But as we can see, with the study of history, Germany's going to quickly delete the war guilt and rise again. Now, this is where Wilson kind of drops the ball. We're doing great as a leader, as a president, and as an ally. But this is where it just kind of dies. The 14 points. Now, highlights within elimination of secret treaties. All international agreements must be known. Because it's the preservation of democracy in the free world. Yeah, I know. Interesting. Open access to the seas in times of war and peace. What is that specifically addressing? What would that be addressing?
Global trade.
Blockade.
Blockades and the use of unrestricted submarine warfare. Very good. Write that down. Blockades and U-boats. Okay? Reduction of military stockpiles. Now, one thing you got to remember, this is across the board. Everyone. Even the United States. Because if we are all on equal footing of relatively low military armament, the idea is that war can never happen. Which is the ultimate goal here. The preservation of peace. It's a fluffy idea, but it's not effective. Adjustment of colonial claims. Your colonies that you have globally need to be shifted to reflect specifically the loss of who? German territories. Okay? With Germany out of the picture, all of those colonies in Africa and Asia need to be adjusted. So who gets that territory? There's a massive imperial fight again. Self-determination means what?
Well, right to govern themselves.
Right to govern themselves, absolutely. Write that down. Now notice this though, but not for those under colonial control. If you are already established as a colony, that does not apply to you. Okay? Which is going to make a lot of people just instantly angry. Why even support this war? We fought on the side of our colony for the mother country in hopes that we would earn this, but it is not forthcoming. This is when a lot of Africa is just basically like, what? This doesn't make any sense at all. We supported your country, we supported the crown, and you provide nothing. Okay? The League of Nations is the crown point. Okay? Afford mutual guarantees of political independence and territorial integrity. League of Nations. One problem with this, though, is that we never join it. Okay? It's our idea. It sounds great on paper, and we never join it.
Hypocritical.
Good luck, Europe. Okay? Anyways, working tirelessly to support the Versailles Treaty. This is the conditions that we have domestically back home. Wilson is trying to advertise this grandeur of an idea that ultimately fails. Okay? What we have here, and we're going to look at Wilson and analyzing specifically, subpoint number 2. He's in France. He's not at home trying to rally support of Congress to support this global initiative. Okay? He's got conflict within Congress as a whole that do not see eye to eye with him. And unfortunately, the stress of this whole event and supporting of his 14 points is going to cause him to have a stroke. In which case, the whole campaign that he had for his re-election, campaigning for the League of Nations, entirely ends right there. Alright? And again, this is the most important idea right here as far as your League of Nations. Make sure you underline that in great urgency. We never join. Now that being said, these are a few political cartoons. This one does not appear on the AP test. These have appeared in the past though. Okay? We don't need to analyze them. I just want you to look at them. And you got to remember the League of Nations, again, who are these people here? Who's him and him?
What does Uncle Sam?
Uncle Sam, representing what?
United States.
The United States, freedom, patriotism, all the great things that we hold true to our hearts as American citizens, absolutely. Now that being said, just look at the positioning of Uncle Sam specifically in figure 1 here. Okay? Make a simple statement.
He's caught in the middle, and he doesn't know who to join because everyone wants him to join.
Right, he's bound by the bondage of the League of Nations here. Okay, we have the Empire of Japan, we have European nations, other nations, and England. Pulling at Uncle Sam, trying to maintain that support of this initiative overseas that will not be forthcoming. What do we know of Mason bridges? Or masonry, mason arches?
They need every single brick to stand up.
Specifically what? There's one stone that must always be present for the whole
Middle,
thing.
middle.
What's it called though?
The keystone.
The keystone, very good, which should be located right here. Now again, if this does appear, be prepared to answer why this is ironic. Okay? And maybe even the positioning of Uncle Sam himself. Here we have a critical issue with the bridge not being finished. And again, these little trusses here will maintain the pressure for some time, but not to the magnitude that a keystone can. Look at Uncle Sam.
He doesn't care.
Just relaxing. Okay? Has a smoke in his mouth. Just very nonchalant. Okay, this is, I understand this needs to be completed, but here we are, we'll buy our time.
Except they know that they have to be there because there's the blueprints where it shows that they're ready.
Absolutely. As designed by the President of the USA. So who does this specifically represent other than Uncle Sam, do you think?
Woodrow Wilson.
Wilson's fighting for this. Who would Uncle Sam represent in a very, I understand this is important, but it's not going to be happening. Congress. Very good. Okay. Excellent. I thought this was funny. This is Wilson, yes. What's the major idea behind this one?
He's the birth of the, or he has made the League of Nations.
He has made this. Now, obviously, if you're familiar with poultry, can this bird effectively incubate and have this thing be born?
No.
No. Okay? I thought that was wonderful this morning. Any questions? Great job today. I would work on the objectives right now while you have some time. All the 15 materials are due on the 19th.
Then 2 days after that,